Hi, AP Gov students, and welcome to week 3 of distance learning. This will cover Monday, April 20th through Friday, the 24th. So the 25th is inaccurate on there. And we're kind of getting into what our new normal is. So some reminders are that every assignment that you have this week is going to be due on Friday by 11:59 p.m. So although I'm going to give you a format that you can follow over the course of the week, the way in which you approach it is up to you. The exception for that each week is if you were in charge of the lesson, in which case that's going to be due on Tuesday by the end of the day so that I can upload that for everybody else on Wednesday. So this screen you've seen in the past 2 weeks, so it shouldn't be anything new, but just a reminder that we are sticking with these new patterns and new rules and regulations that we've done before. As always, my office hours are from 11 to 1. Thanks to those of you that joined us for Jeopardy last week. I think we had about 9 people that played Jeopardy together, and it was good to see your faces and just talk about some of the concepts from the previous unit. And lots of you send me Schoology messages and emails if you have any questions, so please continue to do that. I am happy to respond as quickly as possible. So this week we're going to be covering policy making, specifically economic and social welfare policy making. Each one of the chapters that we have coming up really combines a whole bunch of different topics about policy making into one. And so for the next couple weeks, we're going to start with the documentary from Frontline, which is like a PBS series, I guess, and that somehow relates to the topic of that week. And then we're going to do a concept application based FRQ that goes along with that, just to practice that style. So that's the one where you have a little scenario and then it has A, B, and C that go with it. So for the documentaries, instead of having a text passage, you're going to have a scenario instead of having a text passage, you're going to have the documentary that is going to provide the information that you need in order to answer those questions. So that's how we're kind of modifying and adapting to this new AP exam style. Then on Tuesday, you're going to have retakes for last week's test that everybody is going to complete, regardless of how well you did, just because we want to get as many sample test questions to you as possible. So if you need to think of that as just practice questions for the AP exam, you can think about it that way, but they are specifically going to relate to the content that we just covered on the test. You're also going to watch about a 20-minute documentary that's the same series that the Gideon versus Wainwright one was from, and it's the checks and balances segment, and it starts at about 41 minutes in, and so I think that link is going to take you directly to the spot that you need, but if not, just scroll forward until you get to 41:50. Then on Wednesday, we'll have our lesson about chapter 16, some specific component of that. And then your quiz on Friday is going to follow that FRQ format. So I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. So let's take a look at what comes up each day. So as you are watching the documentary Targeting El Paso, it's combining some of the issues of mass shootings that we've seen in the past couple of years and also immigration issues, and together looking at some of those specifically in El Paso. And that's about a 55-minute documentary. That's the same series that the Supreme Revenge one was. And so you're going to recognize the narrator and stuff. As you're watching that, I want you to think about some of the big concepts from the course of this year. These big concepts are things that are most likely going to turn into argument essays, on the actual AP exam that you're taking. So things like federalism, that's the division of power between state and federal governments. Social policy, specifically immigration policy in this, but also gun control policy goes along with that. Civil rights are when we're talking about groups of people. So immigrants, for example, would have civil rights issues, but then civil liberties issues as when we're looking at an individual's right to bear arms, for example. So both of those are going to be at play in this. So after you watch the documentary, you're going to complete the concept application FRQ, and that is something like if you need to jump back into the documentary to look at it again in order to help you with it, you certainly can. It's not something that's meant to be taken without outside resources, because everything we do now involves outside resources. So we're going to mimic the AP exam style when we do that, except instead of a text excerpt, you're going to have the documentary. So on Tuesday, again, you're going to have those retakes that everybody does. If you need to think about them as practice questions, that's fine. and the Youngstown Steel checks and balances video that you're going to watch, in the same way that we did the Gideon versus Wainwright one, you're going to have a quiz afterwards that you know the questions in advance. So the questions are going to be, how does Youngstown Steel reflect checks and balances? It's a case study for checks and balances. So basically, why is it a good example? And then for the second part, what parts of the Constitution, specifically the articles of the Constitution, rather than the amendments, are involved in Youngstown Steel. So very much mimicking the format of what we did a few weeks ago with Gideon versus Wainwright. Block 2 on Wednesday, we will have something about Chapter 16 that our group is going to be presenting. So last week we just had the presentation part because Owen was working solo. This week we'll have the presentation, the activity, and the assessment. So we'll have a few more things to reinforce Chapter 16, which will help to prepare you for your quiz on Friday, along with reading your textbook. So it is going to be a 40-minute quiz because the AP exam technically has 40 minutes of work because you've got a 25-minute argument essay and a 15-minute concept application FRQ. So those are going to be the two styles of questions that you have on your quiz on Friday. So question 1 on Friday is going to be an argument essay that somehow relates to the content of Chapter 16, but still brings in those foundational documents. And then the concept application FRQ is going to involve a scenario that, again, mimics the stuff from Chapter 16. So you're welcome to use your book for this, but it is definitely not a very Googleable set of quiz questions, as you hopefully saw from your test last week, that it really is about applying that content knowledge. So I would definitely recommend reading the chapter in advance because this is not one of those scavenger hunt kind of quizzes where you just look through the book to try and find the right answer. So this is looking ahead to week 4, starting on April 27th. Yeah, that sounds right. So on Monday of that week, the documentary that you're going to be watching that's going to have an FRQ that goes with it rather than a quiz and discussion is about the Flint water crisis. So as you can see, this chapter is about, it's actually about the environment. Yep, I have the wrong chapter title there. It's about environment and healthcare policy, I believe. And so I figured that the Flint water crisis actually relates to both of those. And so you're going to watch that and relate it to some of the key concepts of the chapter. You'll notice we have a lot of presentations coming in this week because we are getting close to the AP exam. So we have to cram everything in there as much as possible. So Barsua, Caleb, and Jackson H., you guys are going to send your stuff to me on Monday so that I can share it on Tuesday about Federalist 51. So that is the checks and balances Federalist paper. Then Federalist 78, Janelle, Jane, and Connor, you're going to be sending me that stuff on Monday so we can post that Tuesday and reinforce some of the stuff that you guys read about the power of the judiciary or the lack of the power of the judiciary in Federalist 78. Wednesday, Sophie, Isaac, and Jasmine are going to present on Lesson 17, so they're going to send that to me on Tuesday. And then Auntie Saray and Maddie are also going to send me their stuff on Tuesday so that we can post the Federalist 70 stuff on Wednesday. So you'll see a lot of information from your classmates to help you review some of those key documents that are going to show up on your AP exam. And then we'll have your quiz over Chapter 17, which is healthcare, the environment, and energy. Let's see, Janelle, Jane, and Connor. Nope, that's the wrong group. Sophie, Isaac, and Jasmine will have helped you guys to prepare for it. And again, that quiz is going to mimic the AP exam style where it'll be 40 minutes with an argument essay and an FRQ. So that is what we have coming up next week, and then the week after, we'll probably tweak it a little bit along the way. The College Board has some resources on its website that we might play around with a little bit. So obviously, these are subject to change when we're looking more than a week out, but at least you know how to attack things for next week. So let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, we will keep on with our new normal. So I miss you guys and hope you're doing well.